Hey, what's up, guys? Just a public service announcement to most of you, except for probably the handful of hardly any of you that are actually mentally ill. I am pretty certain at this point, after spending some time, and you guys probably are too. I'm certain at this point that this therapy culture is narcissism. This therapy culture is narcissism. It's people trying to make sense of themselves as self appointed gods to make sense of their poor behavior, right? So when you're worshiping yourself as a god, you can never deliver. You're always going to be shorthanded. You're always going to come up short. You're never going to please yourself. And you're going to end up unhappy. And then you'll be like, I'm unhappy, so I should go to therapy. And that's not going to help you either because therapy is just going to confirm that if you do all these other things or you get some other stuff or you go to therapy, that you're going to be happy. You're chasing happiness and pleasing yourself, which is narcissism. So it's basically trying to justify your poor behavior, which is sin, and making sense of it. Why don't you just step out of that paradigm? Just step out of it. I think it's also the therapy culture, as it's been written about numerous times, and I'm not the first person to say this or wake up to it. It's also a symptom of the materialistic, consumeristic culture that has nothing to offer. Like it can't like there's only so much stuff you can have. It's a symptom of godlessness in our Western culture, a lack of religion. That's what it really is. Now, religion is your relation to God, your obedience to God. Once you take yourself out of it and you stop making yourself a little God, a little sick, twisted, narcissistic God, and you worship to God and you worship God, you put yourself in obedience to God, you find purpose within your life. Like you could find like I don't like the word happiness, but it's like it's the best thing. Like we'll say peace, contentment. Even in trial and terrible times, you could find like a peace, like a surrendering to God's will. And if you do that, you become very content and very peaceful very, very quickly because you're in relationship to God. You're in obedience to God. You're not in obedience to your idolization of yourself. So when you're not obedient to God, you become obedient to something else, right? Sex, power, money, whatever it is. It's usually those things. When you're not obedient to God, you become obedient to something else. Sex, power, money. Now, in turn, when you are seeking sex, power, money, self worship, it's empty, no matter how much you get. Like you could keep chasing and chasing and chasing and getting, and just after I get this, and just after I get that. And the next thing, you won't be peaceful. You're going to keep having to chase. You're going to keep having that sickness of coming up dry. If I just get this, I'll finally be happy. If I just get this, I'll be there. I remember you guys remember that part in the movie Fight Club, right? He's got his whole apartment furnished, and he's got all his IKEA stuff and the stationary bike and the furniture, and he's got a suit, and I got a respectable wardrobe and a good job. And I got my concrete box on whatever it was, the 23rd floor of the apartment building. Unhappy. All that guy wanted to do was get destroyed on a plane. That's no way to live. So to fix that, get in relation with to God and obedient to God. Your obedience matters to God more than any sacrifice ever will. You have to be obedient. And those aren't your commandments. You're not writing the commandments down or saying, "Hey, I choose this, I choose that. I don't accept this one." No, all of them. That's what obedience is. And it's not really for your pleasure. It's for obedience to God, but you'll get peace out of it. you surrender that part and live under God in relation to Him, you're going to start getting peaceful and some clarity. All right. So, second is there'll be that crowd that'll be like, oh no, I got trauma. And I get you. I hear you. Everybody's got trauma. Okay, cool. Yeah, everyone has trauma. Yeah, I've talked to guys and girls that were from war zones, that went off to war, that fought in wars, that were in war zones while wars were raging. They were having bombs dropped on them, and they were hiding out in bomb shelters. People that saw their families murdered, their brothers and their sisters, some of them their parents. They came from war zones in many different lands. And you are signed up or need therapy because whatever, you had a tough relationship with your parents in your cushy home in the West. I don't know, because bad stuff happens. Bad stuff happens all the time. And then you end up in therapy and you end up crippled by all these like past traumas that you had. Like everyone's got one. You, me, everyone you look at has got something going on. No one is even close to perfect. So you got to start making sense of that in your own mind. And here's the best way to make sense. Everyone's got it, and life is hard. So you can enjoy that suffering. And here's what I mean by that, right? You can take on that suffering quietly, and you can use it. Don't let the devil take on that suffering and let it get turned into self-loathing or hatred, outward hatred or inward hatred. You take on that suffering and align that suffering to God for your purification. Don't let that great suffering go to waste. Align it, whatever suffering you have, to God to use for your purification. That's it.